Welcome back to Fakt Vs Ficktion. If you're tired of the friction of fiction and you want the tact of fact, that's right, you're here. Now, let's get on with it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I think
I'm turning it back. I'm bringing it
that
back
sound
around.
was John giving himself whiplash before he started the podcast, by the way.
Does anyone know how to feel? Let's go. Anyway. Right, yeah. So I've got with me today, obviously myself, there's Matt, who's going to be the one starting off. Let's see.
Bringing quite the story to the table, something to rival the length of a fiction episode.
After Heatstroke Edition, I don't think that's going to be much, because we started high and then I feel like we went on a
Downward spiral.
We started high like the temperatures.
The quality has been declining.
I feel like that's all
But it did end in death, so...
It did. Anyway, we also have Corby. Do the thing.
Like how you chose me the moment I started to try and drink my coffee.
Yeah,
yes,
You're both drinking coffee at the same time, all right? It was going to be 50-50 whether I got one of you to talk.
We're just going to make it progressively harder and harder to tell us apart as this podcast goes on.
This is how it works.
It's when people actually see us for the first time and there's only 3 people in a picture.
Matt still hasn't got a webcam.
Matt will get a webcam at some point, probably.
No, I meant because there's only going to be one Tom there and people are going to be like, wait, what?
It will actually be both of us, but one of us will be standing right behind the other, so it just looks like there's only 3 of us.
I mean, that could work. I'm pretty sure.
Does that mean I have to stand in front considering I'm the taller one?
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. Otherwise, just the top of your head would be poking up above mine.
And Tom.
As me and my shadow starts playing.
We also have Tom, who's also just taking a sip of his coffee right then.
My coffee mug has pugs on it.
It does.
The pugs are lined up in a mugshot lineup as well.
Oh my god, the layers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just reminds me
The
of
layers on this mug go too deep.
Just reminds me of one of
Some of these pugs are wearing layers. They've got clothes on.
Oh, they are. Yeah. That one's in a hoodie.
One's got a hoodie, one's got some sunglasses, and the other's just
Tom's
got
got
some
Asbo.
Oh,
No.
pug life.
Oh god, it just reminds me of that horrible. Tom Skull was saying the other day that basically the video they shot, was it Sergeant Pugsley, whatever that video was?
Oh, yeah.
That basically the exact same set was also used for a porn thing, a porn parody called Cock of Duty. Like, it was really funny.
Oh,
exact
dear.
same set. Anyway, right.
As in,
Yes.
like, it was the same place they filmed, or they just recreated it and it happened to look the same?
No, same place
No,
they
it was
filmed.
the same location.
Okay. Well,
I don't believe they
I've
were
got-
shot concurrently, though.
No.
this reminds me of a different video I watched where they were trying to do live action bits, and in the same building at the different part, they were having a wedding reception. Someone else was having a wedding reception. So it was just, okay, well, we'll wait for the wedding to go by and stop making less noise before we carry on filming.
Just in the background of the shots, you see people diving past the windows and the doors.
Well, it was weird because they were like trying to film like this like murder mystery bit. So there's just like one of them like, and then there was like one of the scenes where like one of them was like to press the button on the elevator and they open up and it was just a guy lying on the floor. And it's just like, okay, so what would happen if the wedding people stumbled upon this?
We'll ignore the bleeding in my hand.
Good.
Where?
No, we said
I
we ignore
punched a
it.
door. Not on purpose.
Matt, they have handles. There is a way you can get in without doing that.
Matt, you're almost 24. The teen angst is supposed to be gone.
I was gonna say like, it's meant to be in D&D we have trouble opening doors, not in real life.
Maybe I should get a spoon next
Did you
time.
consider before you try pushing the door? Did you consider it may or may not be a pull door?
I did. Still punched it. Oh,
Punching it's not going to help if it's a pull door.
no.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Do we have a hypothetical? If not, I have.
I mean,
one.
Tom's got one if he wants. He's got like the vampire werewolf one. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. If you had to be turned into one, would you rather be turned into a vampire or a werewolf?
First question: what type of vampire and what type of werewolf? Because you could have sparkly
That's a
Twilight
good one.
vampire or
That can
Dracula
fuck- that's
Christopher
not-
Lee vampire.
I mean,
Can I
That's only a
be
vampire.
Alucard?
The Twilight vampires
talking
only
your
vampires in the sense they drain you of any fucking like soul. Just,
They make everything around you just dimmer and less colourful.
You make life less beautiful.
I mean, like, you do have more life struggles as a vampire, I feel.
Yeah, I think werewolf just because that means I can go outside.
I would also say a werewolf because it's like a once a month issue, and the rest of the time you're pretty much good. Whereas vampire, it's all the time. Can't go out in the sun. Can't cross running water. Can't have garlic bread, which is the real.
No, Tom. The garlic thing is completely false. It's actually a rumor by vampires because it's a blood thinner.
Yeah.
So people eat garlic and then they get more blood when they're eaten.
I thought you said people eat more garlic and they make more blood. Just like, oh god,
biology.
But that blood is thinner.
I should have had that garlic bread. I bursted. That's awful. I'd definitely go werewolf, I think, just because you want to get a vampire with the right kind of caveats. You know, you want one that can actually walk over a bridge or something like this. You want one that might be able to go out in sunlight.
Or a grain of salt that's thrown at its feet.
Yeah, you don't want to have like. Oh, I was about to say. I tried to say OCD, but I almost said ACDC as a vampire. You don't want to say
ACDC as a vampire actually sounds very cool.
Explains why Angus Young is still wearing a schoolboy's uniform.
That's why they're back in black. They're back in the shadows because they're vampires.
Also, I feel an innate familiarity with werewolves because I used to have a lot of werewolf dreams. It was weird.
Really sounded like you were about to say, I used to have a lot of werewolves.
I used to just have
back when I was a wee lad and we lived on the werewolf farm.
we were a rescue werewolf place.
I'd visit.
Yeah, no.
Adopt a werewolf today.
Corby just screaming, bite me! Bite me! Leave him alone! Leave harassment for your kind.
Bite me, you won't! That could be either to the vampire or the werewolf. At this point, I don't care.
What happens if they both bite you?
You become
the ultimate
being.
You
either get a werewolf, a werewolf, or a werepire.
I don't like werepire.
The werepire.
I don't like that.
That sounds like a caveman's just lost his pyre that he just made.
I was gonna say every full moon I turn into a pyre.
Every full moon I set on fire.
But it's fine.
It's good. Well,
just sat there with this is fine.
Every full moon you turn into a bat.
So did everyone vote for werewolf then?
I think so, yeah. Well, Corby, I guess Corby's will take either or.
I'm indifferent at this point. Because honestly, a lot of the sacrifices needed to be a vampire. I'm almost there.
You live in the dark anyway.
That is true. There's a reason I look like shit when I have to wake up to record these.
Oh yeah, because like
he's just crawled out of his coffin.
Y'all joke, but I have a coffin on the wall.
Yeah, his dad's a funeral director. I mean, I'm pretty sure he can get one at short notice.
I said as a one-off, as like, oh, can you get me a coffin? And he brought me one home.
Yeah, sure, bud.
There you go, son, an early birthday present.
Oh, gee.
I am very confused as to the message of this gift.
And then I realised I can't fit in it, so we turned it into some shelves instead.
Oh, you too big for it?
Yeah, it's too. It's like for people
oh, Dad,
like
you bought me a
5'8".
child coffin.
They grow up out of their coffins so fast.
I did. Do you want to know where we're going hunting?
For Mike Ethan.
Odd.
Oh. Speaking of hunting, shall we get to the meat of today's episode?
That was a fucking flawless segue. I'm impressed.
Let's hunt down some content.
Oh.
Rawr.
Because you won't find it here.
No, right. Yeah. Matt's volunteering, so let's get him on.
So, without further ado, located in the countries of Tanzania, Congo, Burundi, and Zambia, Lake Tanganyika stands as the second largest and the world's longest freshwater lake.
Yes.
But just over 100 years ago, it was the dominant body of water and supply route for the German East Africa colony.
Colonialism.
Indeed, though we're not going to touch on that anthill.
How? 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 It's Germany, East Africa.
It's very easy. History books have been doing it for years.
Topical.
He is correct.
So Germany, East Africa, prior to World War One, was surrounded by Britain to the north, the Belgian Congo to the west, and Portuguese South Africa, East Africa to the southeast. So it was hemmed in on all sides. So when war broke out, basically Germany, East Africa, there was fighting across all over the place. From every single direction. But unlike the Western Front and what we more commonly associate with World War One, the war in East Africa was very much a mobile war, pretty much no trenches, constant armies on the move, like almost traditional warfare.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to fucking dig a trench in the middle of Africa. That would suck.
Oh, exactly, yeah. You'd dig
It
an
get very
anthill.
hot.
Guess what? It's hot. Now it's full of snakes. Shit.
Snakes and everything else there.
There's a-
Literally, the only other place worse to probably dig a trench is Australia.
yeah, it's pretty...
Yeah.
Just, hey,
The wildlife.
hey, Dave. Yeah, what? There's a lion in Bunker C. Oh, what? Oh, fuck.
But not only was there land warfare in East Africa, but also naval warfare. These included battles such as the Battle of Zanzibar, where the German cruiser Königsberg sank the HMS Pegasus while it was in dock, having slipped past the picket ships in the middle of the day.
I can't help but feel like that was a massive oversight.
Good job,
by someone.
Britain, there. It gets better. This was followed up by the Battle of the Rafifi Delta, where the Königsberg was finally sunk at the hands of 12 British ships. It took 12 ships for the British to sink one German ship. This is the Royal Navy, the height of its power, the biggest navy in the world, and it took 12 ships to sink one.
I believe the British Navy at that point was literally quantity over quality.
Oh, completely. They had a lot of pre-war dreadnoughts and things.
We just swarm everyone and they can't get rid of us.
Very much swarmed down.
I think we got lucky with the Bismarck, but that's another topic for another day.
Another topic for another day, mainly because it's the wrong war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to give you a quote, which will hopefully give you an idea of what's about to come. This was from Sir Henry Jackson, who was one of the higher-ups in the Royal Navy during World War One.
Yeah, I know.
It is both the duty and the tradition of the Royal Navy to engage the enemy wherever there is water to float a ship.
Don't tell me we sailed onto the lake.
Oh boy, we did! This is the bizarre story of how the Royal Navy defeated the Germans on a landlocked lake. This is the battle for Lake Tanganyika. Now, just to clarify, Lake Tanganyika is basically in the middle, of Africa to the southwestern side of Germany, East Africa.
Yeah, we can get a pickup for the guy.
We'll get a picture up for it. And it was pretty vital to defense of Germany, East Africa, because there was a railway that ran along it called the Dar es Salaam Railway, and that was basically they needed to keep that for supply reasons and to ensure they could launch attacks into Belgium territory and stuff like that. So the outbreak of World War One. The German forces on the lake engaged both Belgian ships and 2 British survey ships, quickly taking them out and taking full control of the lake. They sank the British ships Cecil Rhodes and Good News.
Oh, those are very British names.
I'm not gonna lie, after watching a couple episodes of Azure Lane, we just name our ships whatever the fuck we feel like.
Oh, we do.
Oh, do you mean Boatface, anyone?
Some of them have just names of places, and the rest of them just have English names.
If you can see that, it's pretty damn landlocked.
Long snaking thing.
Stop fucking light.
We'll get a photo
I
in the video for it.
We will do.
This was crucial, as I said, to keeping hold of the Dar es Salaam Railway and general assistance within the land war. Belgium needed a response. They had parts to construct a ship called the Baron Darnes. I think that's how you pronounce it. Who cares? But they didn't want to risk its destruction during construction because it was a very expensive boat.
Burnout
People
construction.
do want to risk the destruction of their boats before they're built.
So using 2 12-pounder guns that they had gotten from the British, they used that essentially as shore batteries to keep the Germans away. However, they did go and ask the British for help. The British, in all their wisdom, gave them 1 torpedo boat, no torpedoes, and 4 planes which wouldn't arrive until 1916.
When were they doing this?
This was like late 1914, early 1915.
What route are these planes taking?
Boat.
The best part is these planes were also out of date, or like very early models, like
No,
not
stale
great planes
planes.
anyway. You have to bear in mind, like, that the plane warfare was still quite new in World War One, but even so, it took them a long time to actually get planes down there.
What were they doing? Fucking walking them?
Just wait.
Oh god.
So, in order to form a better response to this and help with the land war, British hunter John Lee, who knew the area very well, came up with a daring plan to counter the Germans. He proposed that they take 2 40-pound twin-engine motorboats and send them overland to the lake. This is South Africa in early 1900s. There is no railways, no roads, and he is proposing that they take 2 boats overland.
We'll walk there. It'll be fine.
How heavy are they, the boats?
They're 40 pounds, but they also come packing 2 5-pounder Hotchkiss guns as well. So there's a fair amount of stuff to take with them, and all supplies and ammunition and stuff like that. It's a big undertaking.
If I consider it, that'd be fine.
The Admiralty agreed. Enter Geoffrey Basil Spicer-Simson.
That's a name.
Holy
A man
moly!
court-martial. He is
Can
quoted
I get
as
that name one more time?
Geoffrey Basil Spicer-Simson.
Well, that's your issue. His first name was Joffrey.
Yeah, that's 4 men in a coat.
Geofffer. Geoffrey Basil Spicer-Simson has been quoted as a man court-martialed for wrecking his own ships, an inevitable liar, and wearer of skirts.
Oh dear.
A man
I feel like those got like
My
progressively
man!
less serious.
He was a man of eccentricity and braggadocio, and more importantly, the only man of sufficient rank available.
This is me in a past life. This is just me in a past life.
Oh,
Yeah.
I found my spirit person.
Let's see if he's still your spirit person by the end of this.
Oh,
dear.
I'm sure he will be.
And then you shot them. Sorry.
I've named this next segment Tales of the Spicer.
Rejected titles for Tales of Berseria.
Why not just the Spicer-Shall flow?
Ooh, that is quite good. I came up with just, like, haphazardly enough. So,
No.
Geoffrey was the oldest lieutenant commander at the outbreak of the war in the entire Navy. Spicer-Simson had been suspended twice for incompetence prior to the outbreak of the war. Born in January 15, 1876, he was born in Tasmania. So
He was literally born a day after me.
He was born a day... What, you were born in 1876?
No,
Wait, Tom, how old are you?
He was born January 15th. I was January 14th. And it was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, you were a day off.
He was born in Tasmania, in like the bottom of the world, bottom beneath Australia, which might explain his characters.
Demons on
His
it.
character.
Characters.
His
Staying on the
character.
show.
I believe the word you're looking for is characteristics.
Yes, thank you, Corby. Spicer joined the Navy at the age of 14 and made a promising start by quickly reaching the rank of lieutenant. He specialised in surveying and spent time surveying rivers in places such as Borneo. While on this trip, he promptly collided his destroyer with a Liberty boat. This saw him put dockside for a while.
Huh.
I'm just wanting to Google what a Liberty boat
I
looks
don't know
like.
what a Liberty boat is. I'm assuming it's American?
It sounds it's got that vibe to it, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
imagining just the Liberty Bell, but it's floating on water.
And British
Oh, no, wait,
destroyer just sideswipes it.
Liberty
Like maybe
boat.
it's upturned and like there's someone with a big oar. Just
Does it ding every time like
Yeah.
a wave hits it?
I mean, like, that's one of the World War II ones, so...
Oh, I'll be a lot smaller than that, but yeah. Okay, so it will have been.
Tugboat kind of thing. Not necessarily a tugboat, but a small like military kind of vessel, which I assume was under American.
I originally googled just normal Liberty boats, and they look like the new speedboats. So
Yeah. Basically, he hit a pleasure barge.
That doesn't sound very pleasurable.
No.
Not for the people on board, I imagine.
as Matt said, with his destroyer, which is
It's a big
quite the
ass
boat. For those of you unaware, that is quite the boat.
I feel like the name Destroyer does imply that.
Well, it's quite the ship to not.
Weirdly, it is
ship
the
nerds.
smallest of the ships, though.
Yeah.
In terms of like
that's
flotilla and squadron, it's still big.
That's because we got cruisers and battleships later down the line.
Indeed. After his time in Borneo, he then conducted the first triangulated survey of the Yangtze River in China over the course of 1905 to 1908, picking up some colourful tattoos along the way.
Because he's in the Navy.
Do we know
In the
what
Navy.
tattoos they were?
Butterflies and snakes.
All right, fair enough.
Not sure what they were doing, but they were described as macabre.
A macabre butterfly.
It's called a moth, isn't it?
Yeah, you sure that wasn't a moth?
It's got this macabre butterfly.
No, it's a butterfly, but the colours are just inverted.
Oh.
He then acted as commander of a variety of ships on the Gambia River until 1914, where he returned to England, I think only a couple of weeks before the outbreak of war. Spicer immediately got to work with suggestions.
Okay.
Now, I'm guessing you all know that U-boats and things were a bit of a problem during World War One.
A bit of an issue, yes.
Bit of an
a
issue.
little
I feel like
kink in
that's...
the plan.
Yeah,
Uh,
we'll just pretend I didn't gloss over them
those
like that.
U-boats.
Well,
you.
His first invaluable suggestion was trailing a rope between two destroyers to capture the periscopes of the enemy. This promptly almost destroyed a British submarine because they couldn't tell which was British and which was German.
Hard to gauge when they're under the water, you know.
If only they painted their periscopes with a flag.
I mean,
Put a very colourful butterfly tattoo on there.
to be fair, did work.
Did work. Great in theory, poorly executed.
It just worked on everyone, and that's not what we wanted.
No.
Let's call these results mixed. Move on.
Mixed results. That is the perfect way to describe
Needs improvement.
Joffrey Spicer. He further showed off his skills by running his ship aground while testing the defences of Portsmouth Harbour. Later, sinking a small boat.
They won't expect a shore attack. Sorry. That's a great way to test the defenses.
Don't know how he was testing the defences, but he managed
He did this at Portsmouth.
Yeah,
you
he
say.
was testing Portsmouth Harbour defences and he ran his ship aground.
I don't know how, but that's...
Well, clearly the Portsmouth defences need improving.
Clearly.
This is probably offensive. I'm gonna get caught, but is this the Navy equivalent of a kamikaze strike?
I mean, no.
Not intentionally. He did destroy a small boat. So, needless to say, Spicer was put somewhere where he'd be less of a hindrance and a danger. He was put in command of He was put in command of HMS Niger and its flotilla at Ramsgate. Not much later, after reaching and getting to grips with his command, he went ashore to entertain his wife and guests at the local
Not with the
hotel.
boat, right?
Not on the boat. While he was at the hotel, he had an excellent view.
He thought about it.
While he was at the hotel, he had an excellent view of HMS Niger being torpedoed and sunk in dock.
To be fair, that's not his fault. I mean, yeah.
I don't think he left anyone on spot, or like on watch or as pickets, so all the flotilla was just in dock and then they just torpedoed it.
I can imagine though, like at the restaurant looking out, he just stands up and goes, "Okay, this one's not on me. This one's not my fault."
I'm just gonna. That's not mine. That's not my.
I think
fault.
I'm in here. It can't be my fault.
I was gonna say when we were just riffing on like him bringing his boat to entertain his wife, I had the image of that meme where it's like his wife in bed is like, "Ah, yes, me, my husband, and his SS Niger."
Oh. Needless to say, the Admiralty saw nothing to lose in sending this man as expedition lead, nicknaming the expedition Simon's Circus.
You are allowed to fire people in the Navy. You are allowed to. It's okay.
We're at war. We can't afford to get rid of anyone.
Yeah,
It does feel a bit like this guy keeps sinking boats wherever we send him. Let's put him on a different boat and hope that works.
Just
The
charge
Admiralty
him
basically
as a double agent.
he was fluent in German.
Okay, no, I'm calling this right now. Spicer was the greatest double agent in history. He's successfully taken out about 3 boats at this point.
He was the worst double agent in history.
If you say it with a camp German accent, it sounds like a legit German name. Geoffrey Spicer.
The Admiralty basically saw...
Geoffrey Spicer.
The Admiralty basically saw this whole thing on the lake as like, this isn't important. We've other things to worry about. So they just sent Spicer off and was like, it'll be fine. So, leaving on June 15th, the 28 men Spicer brought along consisted mostly of his acquaintances or reservists. So he's basically bringing his chums along.
Not people who are actually in the Navy, just his mates.
I'm assuming they were in the Navy, but they were his mates in the Navy.
I'm assuming they've never served with him, because otherwise there'd be an issue.
He was in charge of like the transfer of merchant seamen to the Navy, so I'm assuming he just brought some of them along.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, wait, so they were merchants, not actual
reservists and
the
friends.
Merchant Navy, yeah, the reserves.
Oh Christ!
During
And
the
also
journey,
just a few close friends. That's just Barry and Paul from down the pub. I thought they'd be a laugh.
It's like that.
Wait, he brought the Chuckle Brothers.
It's like that Merchant Navy place we found when we were trying to find the Buccaneer again. Yeah.
during
People
the
will
journey,
know of the Buccaneer, but today is not
oh
that
god,
day.
we'll go over the Buccaneer at some other point.
No, it's fine.
During the journey, Spicer regaled the crew with his exploits and I'll start that again. During the journey, Spicer regaled the crew of his exploits and adventures of intrigue, such as hunting rhinos on the Gold Coast, where there are no rhinos.
Yeah, there aren't.
He lied about his knowledge of stars.
Not anymore, there aren't.
Bloody got them all, didn't I?
That's a great job.
He also lied that the hunters there had told him he'd bagged the biggest rhinos ever. So not only is he lying that he shot rhinos, he's lying that people claimed he'd shot the biggest rhinos. Following this up, he also lied about his knowledge of stars and astrology, berating people along with them who knew what they were talking about.
Oh dear.
Yeah, no, that's just get rid of him.
He then threatened to commandeer the ship when told not to smoke by the petrol-fueled engines.
Christ, this.
Throughout all this journey, though, he was ensuring his beard was in tip-top condition.
Okay, good. He's got his priorities in order.
He has his priorities straight.
It's the Navy, you're allowed a beard, it's fine.
Upon arrival at the Cape on around July 2nd, Spicer promptly dismissed John Lee, the guy who had brought up the whole expedition, on charges of dereliction of duty and drunkenness. These were false charges.
Are you sure he's not the best double agent in history? Because I feel like he's
really going for it, isn't he?
If he's not already a double agent, he sure is auditioning to be one.
Also, I like every chance he gets, he's trying to almost commandeer the ship. It's like, my tea's cold. Right, commandeer the ship. Just every chance he gets.
Oh.
The pages in these books are stuck together. I'm commandeering the ship.
He then set about gathering the expedition together. The boats were then hauled overland across mountains, over 140 rivers and gorges, along rails and down rivers, to reach the lake in early November. It took several months to get the boats there.
I can't help but picture this as like a log flume adventure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
I'm just picturing him just being in the boat at all times. Like with me too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk a little bit now about the boats, named the Mimi and Tutu.
you sure it's not just meme?
I mean, basically
The SS meme.
I would love to
Spicer-
take a ride on the SS meme.
SS meme. Once they'd arrived at the lake, Spicer promptly set about constructing their new ships at the base. He christened them Mimi and Tutu. They were made of mahogany and were armed with forward-mounted 5-pound Hotchkiss guns. So expensive wooden boats.
Yeah, that is a pricey wood.
Spicer had wanted to name them Cat and Dog, but the Admiralty refused.
Oh no! We can't call them cat and dog. We
wait.
have to give them proper serious sounding
Did-
names,
did
like
he
Mimi
name
and
Okay,
Tutu.
Meme and Tutu.
Did he name them cat and dog just in a different language?
Almost. I will tell you what the names translate to at the end.
Okay.
Dog and a bigger dog.
Spicer was fairly confident in the capabilities of the ships, having suggested several modifications himself, such as more armor, improvements to the guns and stuff. This was in spite of the fact that during the testing back in June, the Mimi's gun was blown off her because it wasn't bolted properly to the ship.
Wait, so it was hit and blown off, or the idea that it recoiled so hard
It
that blew
recoiled so
itself?
hard that it tore
Yeah.
itself off the boat because he hadn't bolted it properly. Oh,
I feel like we are just setting dominoes up right now.
you'll be surprised how well it goes. During all this time doing the construction, Spicer spent it insulting the Belgians, quite literally insulting them as his first contact with them. It doesn't say what he said, but I'm assuming he picked up the phone and basically called them some kind of slur.
Hey up, you Congo bastards.
Something like that.
I was gonna say, I imagine he picked up the phone and asked to speak to someone in English.
He probably did.
Probably.
That sounds like worryingly like, yeah, that's probably what happened.
Oh, I couldn't actually find what he said, unfortunately. I don't think anyone recorded it. He also strutted around camp, always making sure he was seen with a sleeveless shirt and a khaki dress. This showed off his wonderful tattoos and was not much liked by the rest of the naval staff and the Belgian allies. The local
They were all very big
population
fashion
loved it.
critics.
Yeah, but the local population loved it. They give him a nickname later down the line that I think you'll like.
Hell yeah.
Well, he also insisted that an admiral flag be flown at the outside of his hut at all times, despite the fact he was a lieutenant commander.
Oh, fucking
Let's
hell.
rewind. You said this man had a wife, didn't you?
He does have a wife.
Did she know about him wearing a dress?
I don't know. I'm
her
assuming
dress.
Is it her dresses he's wearing?
it was. I've seen a picture of it. It is
Sorry,
just,
darling, I need to take your clothes to the Congo.
It's for bandages, yes.
it's only like a waist down dress. There are pictures of him in it.
Yeah.
Now, during all of this preparation and whatnot, and the Brits taking several months to get there, the Germans had also been busy prepping. Facing Spicer were 3 German vessels commanded by Gustav Zimmer, the 45-ton Kingari, the 60-ton Hedwig von Weizmann, and the 1,200-ton Gross van Gotzen, which had been newly finished. They were armed with forward-facing guns, including some that they'd nicked from the British when they sunk their survey ships.
They're imaginative names, because doesn't Gross van Grotzen just mean the big Van Grotzen?
Basically, yeah.
Like, yeah,
Also, I can't
big.
help but imagine the Hedwig with just Hedwig as its what do you call those, like on the prow?
Oh, yeah.
The figurehead.
Yeah.
Figurehead.
I
Just
think
got a little
military
snowy
boats
owl on
had
there, yeah.
figureheads.
Not at this age.
I think they stopped once they became metal.
It just made the ship horribly unbalanced.
I guess it depended on how much weight you had at either end. Regardless.
I mean, if they were metal.
Oh,
that's my
true.
point.
Yeah, if you made metal figureheads, yeah. And it wasn't just... To put it into perspective, it wasn't just the British that were incompetent. On December 1st, the Commander Rosenthal, who was in charge of the Kingani, decided he would examine the British construction personally. He left the boat at night, swam to shore, followed the railway, found the construction, observed it, and was like, oh shit, this might actually be something dangerous. He then promptly got lost, deciding not to follow the railway line back, getting lost in the woods, and then getting captured by a Belgian patrol. So, the Kingani is now without its ship commander, because he went alone ashore.
Right.
You do have to be fairly incompetent to get lost when there is a very clear railway route that gives you a direct line back to where you came from.
I mean, to be fair, like I feel like railways would have, in his defense, railways would have patrols.
He got lost away from the
You would
railway.
like to hope that
He-
like of the.
He
Considering
got,
how important railways were in the war times, you'd
Yeah.
like to hope that they were being patrolled, so nothing like sus as fuck
Yeah.
is going
Yeah.
on.
he got lost away from the railway track. He decided he was going to hide in the foliage until sunrise and escape, and mustn't have hidden very well because the Belgians found it.
I was going to say that.
I was going to say, I imagine that was daylight. They'll never expect it.
I was going to say, I imagine that's the reason he didn't take the railway back because of the patrols.
Probably.
I can see his reasoning. It's just not very good.
The fact he did it himself and didn't send a subordinate.
Yeah,
so he remained a prisoner of war for a while. He did actually manage to get a message out to the Kingani, but it arrived a month after. Basically far too late, because we're about to get to the action. So, on December 26th, the Mimi and the Tutu were launched in pursuit of the Kingani. Attacking from its port and stern, the Kingani could not bring its forward-facing gun to bear. After being shot and then rammed, the ship was captured. It took just 11 minutes. Spicer, who had been knocked over during the ram, claimed to have fired the crippling shot, despite being on the floor and at the wrong end of the ship for the gun.
How big were these ships again that he's using?
So they were 40... You'll be able to find pictures of them. They're 40 pounds. Like they're motorboats, essentially. They're not massive. And basically,
how do you ram a giant ship like with that?
Needless to say, it crippled the Mimi's bow.
Okay, makes sense. I guess they just shot them so they gave up, which is alright, fair enough.
Basically, the Kingani was tacking, trying to turn its gun around, and basically, because it was 2 attacks, it got screwed. They retrieved the Kingani, repaired it, and Spicer rechristened it the Fifi, and stole one of the Belgium 12-pounder shore guns and fitted it to the Fifi as its main gun.
Fair enough.
He didn't ask the Belgians.
No, well, no, why would you, the Belgians?
He probably thought that since they borrowed it off of us, we're taking it back.
That's a British gun, I'm British, I'm taking it. That's how it works.
For this victory, Spicer was also promoted to commander. The locals now calling him Lord Bellycloth.
Right.
Context will be given later.
Yeah.
Was he wearing a cloth over his belly?
It all makes sense.
He's just leading us up to it.
During this time, the Germans did nothing, not investigating the Kingani's disappearance until February, 2 months later. They I guess they just assumed it was fine.
He's taking an awfully long time to survey those boats. When do you think he'll be back?
I don't know. Much.
Shut up, I am doing crossword.
So,
Christ.
Spicer decided to follow up this victory in February by heading after the Hedvig. He launched the Fifi and the Mimi in pursuit, and after a 3-hour chase, the Fifi finally caught up and landed the killing blow. It took longer than it should have, because it turned out when the Mimi, the Fifi, and the Tutu fired their guns, it really reduced their speed.
Yeah, it slowed them down because
they were basically, if anyone knows what a punt boat is, they were essentially those.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, if they're forward-facing guns, the recoil would force them back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During
Physics, bitch.
I wonder if they would have actually knocked them over if they fired them sideways.
I am sure there were many an accident.
They probably definitely, if they fired sideways, they would almost definitely capsize.
Just fire fast enough that you can do barrel rolls, it'll be fine.
You're becoming more like your father.
Shut up.
As Spicer took the boats over to pick up survivors from the Hedvig, he stopped and took the opportunity to retrieve a ship's locker. Would anybody like to take a guess at what was inside?
Nothing.
Nudie bags.
A large package that says secret gambling stash on it.
All wrong. It contained a German naval ensign, the first to ever be captured in the war.
As in a person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spicer was the first person to capture a German naval ensign purely because he wanted to pick a locker up.
This person was inside a locker.
Yeah.
Do we know
I
why?
have many questions about...
Were there some German jocks going about that shoved him in there before this went down?
Presumably he thought it would be safe. He wanted somewhere to hide, I don't know.
This locker was in the water.
So the Hedvig had been pursued and shot and holed. And so presumably the locker fell out of the ship when it was sinking. And it just so happened to have a man inside.
Oh, when you say ensign, do you mean... Because there's two versions of ensign. There's the person and there's the naval flag that they fly from their ship.
Oh, it might be the naval flag. I just
Okay,
assumed
that
it
makes
was
a
the
lot
man.
more sense.
I assumed it was the man.
Okay.
Never mind.
I'm still going to imagine it's the man.
It makes far more sense that it's their flag.
Fuck's sake.
I preferred the original version of the story.
Correction. Spicer was the first British officer to capture a German naval ensign flag.
Which is still pretty
Which is
weird.
still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It was an ensign wrapped in an ensign.
The ensign wrapped in the ensign.
Yeah, he unfolded the flag and there was a man in there.
It's like Cleopatra with flags. Ugh.
So that just left the Grötzen as the only ship of danger on the lake. The following day, Spicer spotted the Grötzen through his binoculars. He then put down his binoculars, returned to bed.
Good move.
Give me another half an hour.
Don't worry, lads. I'm sure he's thinking of something.
I in my head, I was picturing him looking also through the wrong end of the binoculars. It's just like,
That's why he went back to bed. He thought it was actually miles away.
Don't worry, lads. It's far smaller than anticipated. I'm going back to bed.
Spicer decided they needed a bigger boat.
Sick Jaws reference.
So for the next few months, he went in search of said bigger boat all around the Congo. He eventually found one from the Belgians and stole it. I commandeered, we'll say.
Yep.
In the meantime, the Grotzen's guns had been removed and replaced with wooden dummies. Spicer was unaware of this.
Why?
Because nobody told him, and nobody knew, nobody worked out. They didn't send any reconnaissance out to check.
No, I know, but I mean, why would you you've lost two ships? I was like, I know what we'll do. We'll take our last ship. We'll swap out the guns.
The guns
no.
The guns were taken by the German land forces for defense purposes.
Right,
they assumed that the Grötzen was big enough to scare off the British. So upon his return, Spicer then took part in a joint naval land assault on the fort at Bismarckburg, which was on the lake. Unfortunately, Spicer let the garrison escape because he was scared of the fort's big guns. These were also wooden dummies.
I mean, it's working. Yeah.
Did he only use his binoculars once?
I think so.
He then threw them into the lake.
It's truly amazing that they had any success. Finally, on June 12th, the 4 planes that had been promised to the Belgians arrived and bombed the now scuttled Grötzen. Soon after, the Germans lost the railway and had to retreat inland. The whole conflict officially ended on July 27th. So the British won, despite the incompetence of their commander.
I mean, did they win? I don't think anyone won. Any idea what happened to him after the war?
I'll now read you an epilogue to round off the story of Geoffrey Basil Spicer-Simson. For his actions, Spicer received the Croix de Guerre from the Belgian king. The Admiralty never gave him a command again.
Yeah, no shit.
Finally, they learned.
I'm going to leave you with a quote I found on, which I think nicely sums up the whole thing. No single achievement during World War I was distinguished as more bizarre than the successfully executed undertaking of 28 daring men who transported a ready-made navy overland through the wilds of Africa to destroy a navy flotilla on Lake Tanganyika.
Mm.
And I will leave you with some interesting facts that didn't quite fit the story. So, the Grötzen is actually still in service today on the lake as a passenger and transport steamer. So Spicer's nemesis outlived him. The book and the movie The African Queen is based on these events. Not that any of us have read or seen it, but I took a couple of looks at the poster and whatnot, and basically it's almost like a recreation of the whole thing, essentially.
I think I might have seen The African Queen, ages ago.
It's quite an old movie.
Yeah.
Some Spicer facts for you. So the Mimi, the Tutu, and the Fifi translate to meow, bow wow, and tweet tweet in French.
Yeah, okay. There's a picture of him standing on board a bloody Belgian vessel there. Well, you can tell he's the one in the skirt standing
he's
up.
the one in the skirt.
Doing the pose.
Yeah.
During the whole
He's JoJoing the shit out of it.
during the whole length of the conflict, they did have a couple of other smaller boats and stuff. Look at that, man.
Oh
He's
yeah, the squeak
majestic.
squeak, the moo moo, the neigh.
The
nay-nay.
Which is the most terrifying because that's got a big machine gun on it.
So Spicer himself went on to be a translator and naval delegate at the Versailles Peace Conference on account that he spoke both French and German. So they had nothing to do with him, and they just sent him to Versailles.
You wouldn't let any man like that near a peace conference.
And
Yeah.
yet they did.
Considering, he's also a chronic liar.
To be fair, it's probably a good way to humiliate the Germans even further. This is the man you'll be dealing with.
It's the man who beat you on Lake Tanganyika.
I shot
do you
the
feel?
biggest rhinos. Please shut up.
Oh,
Turned up in a skirt and everything.
he did.
Just made a skirt out of the naval ensign flag. Jesus.
He also received... Oh, God. No! He also received numerous medals, but I appear to have lost that sheet.
Most rhinos killed, biggest rhinos killed. Some of these he made himself.
I'm not sure how many of the medals were he actually got.
Legit.
Or he lied about.
Just like a crappy drawing of a rhino on like a cutout paper circle. As it's strung around his neck.
Oh. His
Except
nickname...
it's not a rhino, it's a different animal.
He doesn't even know what a rhino looks like.
He's drawn an elephant, actually.
Oh, his nickname, Lord Bellycloth, came about because of his bathing routine, where he would clean himself in a canvas tub, and then wear a smoking jacket and drink a glass of vermouth. I don't know if he wore anything other than the smoking jacket.
Probably
I'm
not.
assuming not.
But the locals absolutely loved him. They made fetishistic effigies of him, one of which can still be found in the Dar es Salaam National Museum today.
Well, so Rule 34 was a thing before the internet, even.
Oh. Now, during my research, I also found two other fairly interesting naval things that I decided to mention. At one point, Pepsi was the 6th largest naval power in the world because the Soviets sold them a fleet.
I was going to use that as a fact at some point, but yeah, that's true. Soviets just went, we need money, so here's
we want your
several
American
submarines.
drinks. Here's some boats.
Yeah,
Was it? It was Pepsi, not Coke, wasn't it?
it was
Pepsi,
Pepsi. Yes.
The Battle of Lake Tanganyika was also not the only lake conflict between British and German ships. At the outbreak of World War II, the SS Gwendolen sunk the Hermann von Weizmann on Lake Nyssa. Captain Edmund Rhodes attacked the Hermann von Weizmann while it was on its slipway. Unaware the war had started, German Captain Bernard, who was a little pissed off when his friend and former drinking buddy had shot at him.
There's a war on now.
I'm sorry, we can't drink anymore.
And that is the story of Geoffrey Basil Spicer-Simson and the Battle of Lake Tanganyika.
I'm just
What
going
a
to say,
guy.
just because I saw it, when he said the Hermann von Weizmann on Lake Nyssa, I was like, that's the sister ship of the Hedwig von Weizmann. The other ship got blown up. Oh, God, why is that? Oh, shit.
Oh.
I wonder why they loved him so much, the
I guess
population.
Probably because he stuck it to the Belgians, and let's just say the Belgians
That's probably good
enough.
enough, right? That's probably
We're
good.
not good colonialists.
Not
There
well
are no
liked.
good colonialists.
No.
What am I saying?
A bit hands-on than hands-off, that's the problem.
God.
Uh,
I feel like I've kind of left you guys a
Oh,
little bit speechless.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just amazed at how many things he fucked up and still managed to actually do this.
This is why, like, he could have been the best double agent ever if it wasn't for the fact he went and sunk a bunch of German ships.
Twist, he was actually working for the Belgians all along.
I will explain why they're the only ones who gave him a medal.
I also don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I like how the skirt thing was just like, oh, also he wears the, like. But sometimes he just dresses as a woman. It's just what he does.
Clearly, just
Do you
his
like
way.
my skirt? It's made from the finest rhino skin. It's clearly not. Yes, it is. Show it myself.
Yes, can't you see? These are perfectly formed rhino scales.
This is cotton.
Fucking hell. But,
Yes, he shot the woolly rhinos on the west coast.
uh,
Well, John,
you know, right.
whenever you're ready.
Interestingly enough, my story also features cross-dressing, so that's something.
Really?
Disclaimer, I have a vague idea of what he's about to talk about,
Yeah,
because
'cause
I went on Reddit this morning and I saw a thing on D&D memes and I thought, this woman from France seems like something, sounds like something John would talk about, and then I went, is this the one you're talking about? Yes. Oh.
Yeah, you dick. No, thank you for just telling them. Anyway,
Thanks, Reddit. Thanks, D&D memes.
Can't be able to slap you. Right, no. Right. I'm going to take you back to Renaissance France. I'm talking like 1670s time. And basically, there was a particular... This actually will be quite interesting, because it probably will be, I mean, apart from possibly Spicer-Simson there, the first true LGBT person I think we've actually talked about.
Ooh,
which is quite impressive, especially considering the time.
yeah, shit. 1670. Jesus.
I was going to say,
1670.
disclaimer, we are recording this in June, so it
Yeah,
is Pride
it is
Month.
Pride
However,
Month.
you will see this in September, probably.
Yes, yes, this person was born in 1670, we believe. Anyway, her name is... oh, no, what the fuck is it?
French.
Yeah, we believe her name is Julie de Aubigny, which is spent like her last name is D''Aubigny.
Wait a minute.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think this was going to be one of my research topics as well.
Shut up, nerd. I'm here first. Anyway,
Getting closer to the day where you two
Also-
accidentally
also-
pick the same topic.
yeah, we try and avoid
we
it.
had to talk beforehand to make sure we didn't do the same thing.
Yes, but no. She was. She's interesting because she's renowned as a fantastic duelist, bisexual, opera singer, general all-around kind of maniac.
As I said,
But anyway,
the way I saw it on the Reddit was...
Those are goals.
When I saw it on Reddit, that she was described as the ultimate bard.
I'm saying I'm saying if you ever wanted to play a bard in D&D, looking up this person is a very good start because this is pretty much all-encompassing.
This is how you bard.
I'm gonna have to take this off my list of things for topics.
Well, yeah, no shit.
I literally put that on yesterday. I'm also pretty sure I know where you got it from.
Possibly. No, I was looking. I've been looking up for like a month anyway. But the thing I'm going to read off here is I'm going to try not to go into all the stories about her because there's very little documented evidence about her. But I'm going to say here is what we most likely assume she did. These things were almost we know she existed. These things were almost certain that we're fairly certain that she did, but it's just there's a bit of lack of evidence, right? So, Julie de Aubigny was probably born in 1670 in or around Paris. Her father, the Sir de Aubigny, also known as Gaston.
No one plays like Gaston.
He was secretary of this. He was secretary of this guy called Louis de Lorraine, who was the Comte d'Armagnac. Who was the Count of Armagnac. He was a big figure at the court of the king at the time. Who was Louis the 14th, yeah. But he was the governor of Artois, basically, and he was also the Grand Equerry of France, which means he was responsible for all the king's horses and stables.
All the king's horses and all the king's men.
Yeah, so he was. So he was quite a big man in France at the time. But Gaston
ate a lot of pies.
I mean, if he was rich, he probably did.
Anyway, Julie's father, Gaston, was he was an interesting man. He himself was a bit of a he was a swordsman and a womanizer. So this is already off to a great start.
Also, he is Gaston.
Yeah, yes. We don't know anything about her mother. Might have died soon after birth, we don't know. But basically, she was raised by her father in a very male environment because he trained all the court pages, basically. So he taught them.
The Renaissance equivalent of lads.
Basically, he was taught. He was teaching them grammar, literature,
he's
writing.
such a Gaston.
No, grammar,
They all
literature,
like
writing.
the page Bible on Facebook.
He was teaching them grammar, literature, writing, dancing, drawing, and also fencing.
Hell yeah.
And he taught her the same thing. And basically, he insisted she learn to fence because it was a pretty turbulent society at the time. A lot of just fencing, violence, and dueling stuff
Wasn't a 30 years war happening around now? Or had it just finished?
I think it just finished. But to give you an idea, at the wealthy quarters of Paris at the time housed probably over 10,000 professional duelists. So you're probably a good idea to know how to use a sword in case you piss off the wrong person. So he just went, okay, yeah, well, I'll teach Julie to do it as well. And turns out, bloody good at it. Really good at it. He was like, this gives me an idea. And so it was not a common skill among women at all. Fairly but she just was incredibly damn good at it. They probably started off around age 12. But funny thing is, a duelist, because she was quite good, she only ever fought men, which just wasn't really done. And on equal footing, she most of the time she won.
This is back in the days of rampant sexism, isn't
it? Rampant. Yeah. And about age, we're not sure exactly what age, about 14, 15, she actually became the mistress of of the governor of Artois, Mr. Competent Armagnac.
So she was beating grown men at duels before the age of 14?
No, she was beating people of the same men of the same age and trained the same way.
Still, that's pretty impressive. That's really impressive.
That is impressive. And then
was she a lefty? Out of curiosity, because that's a pretty big advantage in dueling.
That is a very big advantage.
Trust me, I know. There's not enough info about it. It doesn't appear to be. But yeah, she basically ended up. She actually ended up basically almost kind of seducing the Comte d'Armagnac and basically becoming his mistress for a while, which is quite big.
Draw him into his bed.
We're not sure if her father was still alive at this point or not after the start. But we're not sure if he had anything to do with making the affair happen or whatever. But anyway, she ended up becoming his mistress. Every account basically says she was exceptionally attractive. Like, not only was she fucking fantastic at fighting, she was beautiful. Large blue eyes.
I'm looking at one of the paintings now. Like, yeah.
Large blue eyes, aquiline nose, pretty mouth.
Sword.
Like chestnut hair, all this great sword.
Please don't describe her as having a sword. My mind goes places it shouldn't.
She was a medium height at the time, so she was probably, for a woman, so she was probably about 5'3". But yeah, she was and she was a personality at best was like fiery. She was definitely tempestuous. The affair that with Armagnac probably lasted about 2 years. After which he found her a husband. We're not sure if he was basically if it's because he just wanted a cover for the affair, or she was wearing him out. We don't know. Might have been a mix of the both.
No, seriously.
No, seriously. There is an issue with that later on where that comes up again later. So basically, there's a mild young man from Saint-Germain-en-Laye filled the bill. A guy called Jean Maupin, Maupin even, Maupin, and we're not sure how long they stayed together. The estimates of how long they stayed together was somewhere between a day and a year. After basically,
wow, that's a big range.
Yeah, it's not good.
I like how my thought was just like they've written a date down but didn't put a year next to it. So they either
at some point within this year was when it ended.
Yes, it's very few. That's not very many.
It was 1 to 365 days of marriage.
We don't know much about her at all. We only know her first name, Julie, because we've got one letter that addresses her like that. That's it. Like,
It could
That's
be a
the name
or it
she
could be a
gave.
pet name.
yeah. Most of the time. Anyway, whatever the case, Armagnac or Julie or both, basically got him a post in the tax service in Toulouse, which is quite a distance away from us. And Julie stayed behind in Paris. Well, we're not sure whether with Armagnac's approval or not, but she stayed behind.
Busily nobbing.
And basically, she then ignored her husband for probably the next 20 years or such. Anyway.
So when you say they were together, they were together physically.
Yeah, they were together physically for maybe like a day or some between like a couple months to a year, essentially. But they were still married. He was just sent to the south of France, and basically because she was this independent and didn't have a husband to basically keep an eye on her. She pretty much got to do a lot of what she wanted.
No restraining hand.
No, she just spent a lot of time around the stables and the fence and all. She ended up basically falling in love with this aspiring master swordsman, this guy called Henri de Solan. I'll just call him Solan from now on. And basically, after time, they thought, screw it, and they basically ran away together. And they ran away to they were heading to Marseille, where he claimed to have property. And we're not sure why Saran left. It was either because there's reports different between the chief of police getting annoyed at him. A couple of reports basically say that he might have accidentally killed a man in a duel and went, "Oh, I've got to go," and left.
Whoops, this duel was not lethal.
No, that's the thing. There were dueling laws at the time in France. I'll get onto that in a bit. Yeah. So. And then basically on the journey to Marseille, this is basically the turning point in. At this point, she started to kind of a bit later on, but she started to be called La Maupin, because that was a thing in those days where if you were a wife of someone, you often were called La, their last name. So La Maupin was basically what she was known at for quite a lot of her life. Anyway, this is the turning point in her life, because in Marseille she discovered both what she wanted, her future vocation, and the fact she was actually kind of into women too. So that's kind of started off. We're not sure whether she cross-dressed before she actually started traveling, but it was a fairly safe idea to do so in those days.
Did, but she probably dressed up as a man to make it easier to get around.
Definitely on the way here to make things easier. But who knows? She might have dressed like a boy when she was fencing too. We don't know.
Probably, because as you say, it was a male-dominated sport at the time, so almost certainly the clothing would be male.
Yeah, she had quite a lithe, strong figure, and so she could, in the right clothes, could pass as a guy, or not badly. But the rest of life, it says for the rest of her life, she cross-dressed frequently. Because she was very at ease in a masculine environment anyway, just because of her personality, because she grew up in one, so she could easily pass as a guy.
She was raised by a lad.
Yeah.
No, a Gaston.
You need little girl, a sword. Yes. That was basically. But it was relatively common for women at the time to dress like men in travels anyway, just for safety reasons. Because once again, horribly sexist society. Yay. Anyway.
And just people outside wanting to stab and other things.
Yeah. Either on the way to Marseille or when they got there, Saran confessed that he didn't actually have any property there.
Knew it.
And just went and
the giveaway wasn't at all that he claimed.
Yeah. He at which point. She forgave him. And to survive, they basically gave fencing exhibitions in taverns and the like. They did actually advertise her as a woman, saying, "Hey, fantastic female fencer, come watch her fight a man. Woo, this is cool." And there was a famous anecdote where a heckler called out I don't believe women can fight like that. You're a man. She did actually kind of basically tear her shirt open to settle the question. That silenced them. Anyway, but while they were doing the fencing, they ended up they both had great singing voices. They also they had to sing into their shows to add a bit of get a bit more money in still.
She was an opera singer as well.
Yeah, she eventually but basically she dreamed of career in opera eventually, and there was the Marseille Academy of Music at the time. which had just basically fairly recently been founded. And she auditioned for a particular guy called Gautier, and she passed. But the problem is, like most of the time, people at the time couldn't read music. But she just had a really bloody fantastic memory. So she basically had to remember the notes as she went.
That's impressive.
Yeah, she had an interesting voice too. Because at the time, most women in opera almost tend to be aiming for soprano. She was what we call nowadays mezzo soprano, which is so she tends to sing more of the lower notes. Which is a very interesting voice still.
Is baritone just the male version of that?
Baritones, baritones are a lot deeper, but yeah, this is more
Baritone's
like
the lowest, I want to say.
Yeah, baritone's the lowest. Like soprano hits the really high notes, and mezzo soprano is like middling. It can go quite low and go quite high.
So it's the middle ground between baritone's
kind of more of I think just a more male thing, but yes, kind of. Anyway, but yeah, she managed to get she also revealed a gift for acting. They actually managed to hire Saran too, but so he actually got a job again, which is nice. after he said, "I've got property in Marseille." I get that. I don't have property in Marseille. Oh shit! I love that. She performed as Mademoiselle d'Orbigny. She basically won quick success in a variety of acting roles. And she did kind of throw it away with one particularly escapade. Basically, because of her cross-dressing, she drew on the attentions of young women who initially thought she was a man. Thought that's a really hot man. Oh, it's a woman. Just like basically, and she became infatuated. She became infatuated.
Responsible for thousands of lesbian awakenings throughout France.
Yeah.
Oh, she did not. Did she start like a whole thing?
Anyway, she became infatuated with a beautiful young girl at the time called Cecilia Bortigali. We're not sure if she went after Bortigali or the reverse. Either way,
what if they both went after each other?
Yeah, and either way, it got to the point where the girl's parents, who were fearing a scandal, packed her immediately off to a convent in Avignon. Just went, nope, none. I'm just gone.
Go to the place with all the women.
I know. Look, it's France. We're not thinking clearly.
What are you trying to say about the French?
Like it's French in the 1690s. It's not gonna. it's fine. You consider them women of God, not just women. It's fine. Anyway, what happened was Maupin immediately abandoned Saran to do his acting stuff and the opera. She posed as a young woman seeking to become a nun. She located Bortigali's convent in Avignon and was soon admitted as a novice. They then started plotting an escape together. Now, what we believe happened is she seems to have disinterred the body of a young nun who had recently died, hauled it to Bortigali's cell, and laid it on a cot and then set it all on fire. Thus hoping to lead the nuns that Cecilia had perished in the fire. During the confusion, they fled over the walls of the convent and rode out of town.
That is very extra.
It does escalate quite a bit.
I was going to say, I feel like we went from like a 3 to a 12.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say like maybe she took the body, put it under the covers, made it look like she was just under there. But no.
Even disinterring a nun that recently deceased is a pretty big leap after breaking in.
This sounds quite extreme, but we're fairly certain she might have actually done this just because the truth quickly emerged from this, and the Parliament of the High Court of AIX, so I'm just call it, condemned the Sœur d'Orbigny because they would not address her as a woman in the court records because they couldn't believe a woman had done it, they sentenced her to the stake for sacrilege and an armload of other grave offences, including like interfering with a corpse and all kinds of stuff.
Naturally.
So this is bad. Obviously, she's been sentenced to burn at the stake.
Just like the corpse.
Yeah, it basically, it was a tactful thing. The court records, they were calling the Sœur d'Orbigny because they didn't want to imply that it was basically they didn't want to imply that the Bortigali's daughter had been seduced and kidnapped by a woman,
liberated by a woman.
Yeah, and basically, within 3 months of all this, it kind of the case kind of fell apart fairly quickly, to be honest, just because
was no corpse to prove that she.
It was just they condemned her in absentia anyway, so they didn't really get her. But that happened, and within 3 months, La Maupin had kind of cooled on Bortigali because basically. Bortigali had gone back home after she found out Maupin was having it off with a musketeer at the time as well, and you know,
as you do,
as you do. She started heading north again, back to Paris. Probably tended to go to Paris. Basically, just making her money singing at taverns because she's a great singer.
D&D.
Yeah. While at this particular place called Villa Perdu near Tours, she became embroiled with a drunken young cavalier whom she challenged and fought along with his 2 companions. Probably fought them in succession. It doesn't confirm, but probably one at a time. Some versions say she's taken on as a group, but most of them say one at a time. She ran the cavalier clean through the shoulder, pinning him and thus ending the duel. Within a day of this, he learned that, oh shit, it was a woman. and she learned that he was a guy called Louis Joseph de Albert de Luynes, who was the son of Duke de Luynes, and his wife, son of a duke.
So she's gone and shanked the son of a duke.
Yeah, but we're not sure which one found the other one after the initial conflict, but basically she ended up nursing him back to health, and they eventually became lovers because that's how it works.
Stockholm syndrome.
Gotta love the French. And unfortunately, basically, once he'd recovered, he had received because he was still part of the army. He was the son of Duke, so he got received orders to join the army in Germany because that more shit was happening again.
Happening over
yes. And
HRE stuff.
Basically, yeah. And they both went on to have various other lovers in their life, but they always seemed to find each other again. So this is one of those things that they kept bumping into each other in life. So she's probably like what he was. He was probably one of the true loves of her life, so to speak. Yeah. But yes,
just by sheer coincidence.
You stabbed me. Actually, you're kind of hot. Oh dear. Oh no.
I love the idea that he lost this duel, and then he was gonna tell his parents that he'd lost in a duel, and whoever shanked him, and then he found out it was a woman. He's like, wait, I can't admit to losing to a woman.
Yeah, it was yeah, and she then basically on the move again towards Paris met an oldish actor, like 50s, called Marechal. He was an active musician because everyone was a mix of shit in the day. If you could act, you can sing. Do it.
Look, you do what you can to survive.
Back in the day when there was talent.
Yeah, he basically became her kind of teacher essentially, and said, "No, you should definitely go for the Grand Opera in Paris. You've got to go for it." And yeah, he gave her acting and singing lessons until she basically left because he was a raging alcoholic.
Can be a turn off.
Yeah, and yeah, basically, once again, she met it eventually at Rouen. She met a young bass baritone, a guy called Thenavard. Jesus, that's a hell of a name. He was a baker's son who was just basically touring the provinces on the way to the opera. Once again, two became lovers again, and they finally reached Paris.
Basically, anyone she ever meets of remote interest, she becomes
she immediately
bangs.
Yeah. She was a very free spirit.
You're mildly interested. To the bedroom.
So she got to Paris, and obviously, like the court thing, while she was tried in absentia, it was still kind of going on. She thought, I kind of don't want to get burned at the stake. It can stop me being burned at the stake. I guess I go visit my old lover, the Comte d'Armagnac. and it does. He readily succumbed to her charms again, and obviously, and he put the case to the king, pleading that she was remorseful and had worked hard to become a singer at the opera. The king, apparently amused by her gall and daring, annulled the warrant. Just went, yeah, fuck it, that's funny. And just went, don't burn her, she's cool. I can see, I can start to understand why French peasants had problems with the kings, because they just did whatever the fuck they wanted.
I was going to say, which king did they have at the time? Which Louis was it?
That was the 14th, yeah.
Because, in 50, 60 years, the revolution's coming.
Yeah. Her young lover won a place in the chorus immediately, but she needed a bit more help, just because I guess probably woman again, but then so he and probably the Comte d'Armagnac and probably a lot of other people basically helped her to get an audition. And basically, she needs to contact a guy called Jean-Nicolas de Francine, who was the superintendent of the King's Music, which is a weird title, but yes,
That is a weird title.
And basically, she found out a boy soprano who's a later composer was close to him, so she auditioned for him. Then he mentioned her to him, and it started a whole role there. She ended up being playing a female warrior to play Pallas Athena in a revival of this particular play. And she did fantastically, and I think it's because I think her fencing obviously quite helped on the stage too, because she could. But a lot of the time in acting those days, they had to have something that had like a fan or a piece of paper, just because nervous hands syndrome. So you didn't just do something. So you did something with them. She didn't give a shit. She just went on there with nothing, just did what she did, like completely confident. I guess if you probably like half injured or killed several men, essentially tried to burn down a nunnery, and also grew up among like PC fighters for most of your life, you probably don't give a shit about the stage fright.
Yeah.
So,
Well, she's doing so much stuff which is like would have been frowned upon at the time. I wouldn't be surprised if nothing faced her.
No, exactly. And this is when we're thinking like a modern stage. Stages this time were horrible. Audience behaved in ways that you would not expect. They conversed in move about heckling, loudly sing along with the artists, throwing shit on the stage. Yeah, they did everything. They didn't give a shit.
Actually, I've been to some places where audiences still behave like that.
Would you say there was a distinct lack of decorum?
Yeah. Yes. She made her debut in 1690 under the name Mademoiselle Marpin, and still used her husband's name for everything. The poor bastard.
Meanwhile, he's still
While she did, she
Still
couldn't
trying
be
to find
arrested.
property in Marseille.
Meanwhile, in the south of France. I'm enjoying this paperwork. Back to Paris. But yes, she basically several roles were created pretty much with her in mind. She basically started off in these roles. And there were almost certainly dozens more roles that we know of, but we probably have lost the records of. That's just it. But she could play both comic serious roles and also dance, and she was just fantastic at it. She won quite a lot of respect in the company when she stood up against this guy called Duminy, who was a highly popular, golden-voiced tenor. He was fantastic, but he was a bit of a lout and very coarse and cowardly. He was very intimidating, just tried to seduce people, but in a very aggressive manner.
Yeah.
And he basically during rehearsal for Cadmus and Hermione, he tried his wiles on Marpin. She rebuffed him, and he called her a foul name. Bystanders prevented a duel there and then because she was like, "I'll fucking have you." But no, it stopped there. But then she just waited there that evening for him, dressed as a man, at the Place de Victoires. Accosting him, she demanded satisfaction for his behaviour. Thinking she was a man, he begged for mercy, basically. Like, no.
Oh, so not only is he a crass intimidator, he's also a coward.
He's a massive coward, yes. And she got annoyed because he wouldn't duel her, so she basically just beat him with a cane and took his watch and snuff box instead. Just beat him. And took his watch and snuff box. This is a thing she became quite famous for later on. The next day, he regaled the company with saying, "Oh yes, I was accosted by 3 men in an alley and I defended myself bravely, but they still got me." And she then stepped forward, called him a liar, and gave him his watch and snuff box back in front of the whole company.
Nice.
And he was just like,
now that is a power play.
it is. This became a thing she used to do later on, where if she had to deal with someone, Nick takes something off them, so if they ever claimed later on that a man beat them, she'd just hand it to them in the most public place possible. She just did this, because after he was incredibly nice to her. Let's just say that.
Really?
It was an interesting offstage existence too, because after basically the king basically issued a lot of complaints to the company. Basically said there was a lot of complaints about the company basically doing what they wanted, and also banging whoever they wanted as well. And so he issued a code of conduct for the company, just saying no.
Was this like
Thou shall not fuck.
No
Yeah,
horny at the opera.
And, like it's more like
Was this specifically for them and no one else?
It was basically because the Grand Opera Company was basically the grand seigneurs of the time, the lords, and like kept on finding mistresses and stuff there. And he just wanted to stop that. Basically, it didn't stop, and it says they continued to rate the opera and the comedy for mistresses, and Maupin was more than accommodating. Oh, and Albert, the guy she stabbed, he turned up again. It was like they had several months in 695 together, just being great before he got recalled for a siege. It's basically when he's not at war, he's here. So he's probably got a pretty unpleasant life, like interesting life too, full of action.
They essentially trade war stories.
Yeah, I guess. You stabbed a guy, I stabbed a guy. Nice. Where'd you get him? Collarbone. Nice.
Then I publicly humiliated him.
I took a snuff box off him. I don't know why I went Australian. Took a snuff. But yeah, she did have a lot of female lovers too. Like there's one called Fanchon Moreau, who's around as being like a very beautiful woman, another member of the company. Yeah, and it says following Albert's departure, she seems to have become especially willful. And in 1696, she crossed the line a bit too openly. What happened here was, dressed as a man, she crashed the Duke of Orleans' annual pre-Lenten ball at the Palais Royal and made persistent, obviously unwanted advances to a lovely young marquise, a woman, yeah. Obviously, she wasn't into it, but she was just trying to seduce another nurse. 3 men who were the suitors of the marquise basically said, back off. She challenged them all to a fight, and the 4 retired to a park on the Seine near the Louvre. Aided only by moonlight, she fought each of them in turn, seriously wounding all 3. Some accounts say she killed them. Some accounts say she just wounded them. We don't know. She then returned to the ball and told the Duke that 3 men near the river needed assistance, and disclosed her identity, saying, "Oh yes, it's me, by the way."
She's like some kind of anti-hero.
You see what I mean when I say like all bards in D&D should look up to this woman?
Yeah.
Yeah. She also informed the distraught marquise of the fate of her companions. The courts were aflame for like a week with just the news about her. But because King Louis hated violations of the dueling law, hated them. But
what were the dueling laws then?
Just basically don't. As I said, I think the wars at the time were essentially just don't do it. Really, it's a kind of thing where if you got caught dueling, you'd be in trouble.
Oh, so it was like it was technically illegal, but it all happened behind closed doors.
Yes, yeah. As I said, there were almost 10,000 duelists in Paris.
Presumably, shouldn't kill the person in the duel.
Oh no, it's still murder. Yeah,
like drinking in the 30s.
Yeah. But basically, he seems to have found Maupin very amusing again, and evaded the issue by informing her that the law was silent on female duellers. It only applies to male men. So she got away with it again because the king found her funny.
Do you reckon this was Louis just trying to make a power play?
Maybe. To be fair, if she's stabbing all these men, she's eventually going to stab some of his enemies, isn't she?
Yeah, he's got some equations written in the margins of his notes. He's like, no, it works out.
Yeah,
she'll get some of my enemies eventually.
Naturally, she was very.
One day she'll stab a pretender.
Naturally, she was very, very relieved by this, but fearing that he very kind of worried that he'd change his mind because kings are tempestuous at the best of times, temperamental. She left for Brussels, just left the dust south for a little bit, just to get out of Paris for a while. Yep, I'm going, and which at the time was the Spanish Netherlands still. Which was ruled over by the Duke Elector of Bavaria, Maximilian II Emmanuel. He was a music lover, well, man whore. He was once again going after everyone, and he was this widower who was probably only about 30 still, and he was just like, I'm just gonna bang everyone.
Disclaimer: I had a little bit of lag there on my recording.
Oh, sorry. So... Yeah, I was basically saying he's a very young widower who loved music companies and just tried to seduce anyone he could, any woman he could, essentially.
I believe you said a legendary man whore.
Yes.
Also, I'm very confused as to why he's from Bavaria and yet he's ruling a Spanish country.
It's fine. Holy Roman Empire. It's
Don't
nonsense.
question it.
He had his Theatre de la Cour was a very distinguished company, and most of it was French actors and singers, because he loved the Lully, who was the guy who ran the operas in France. He loved his operas. And in 1694, Louis XIV had basically. They say as a kind of diplomatic thing, had lent him musicians and dancers to try and get more of his favour. So La Maupin, Julie d'Aubigny, turned up, immediately joined the theatre, won acclaim, and immediately started banging the Duke of Bavaria.
As you do.
The affair lasted for actually quite a few months, so probably much longer than usual for both of them for the conquest, before Maximilian, who we assume just kind of got tired of a non-stop just nonsense, turned to
what he perceived of nonsense as nonsense.
Oh yeah, and she probably, and let's face it, a woman like that would tie the hell out of anyone.
The sounds of it, yeah.
He basically his attention turned to Mademoiselle Merville, who was a ballet dancer. She was quite desperate and annoyed at this, and while playing Dido's Suicide and basically playing Dido in this, she spoke in the particular play, which is the Johann Wolfgang Frank's Aeneas. She played Dido. She basically supposed to kill herself on stage. She did actually stab herself on stage, obviously. And this was a big display. This completely embarrassed the Elector. The Duke, who but still continued with the ballet dancer. But basically, the ballet dancer then just ended up banging a Comte de Donna instead. He then came back to Maupin, and then but ended up wandering again because he is he's Duke of Bavaria. And he gets
He's a wandering hands.
Yeah, he found a different person, and she actually, the other person actually managed to get him a son, which he was very happy with. So he married her off to a different Comte d'Arco, but continued on with her. So it was kind of like a ménage à trois thing. It was very weird. Anyway, but basically, he decided, I've got to get rid of Julie d'Aubigny. This is killing me. And he sent the Comte d'Arco, the man he married his mistress off to, around with a dismissal from our company, around with about 40,000 livres, just to say, hey, here's a payoff. Please leave. She threw the money at him, and basically,
like in handfuls or in just the chest.
Just
because I can believe she could pick up the chest and just
just threw the money at him. She eventually agreed to leave, but only and she took a 2,000 livre pension from the election, and just left the country. Most accounts say she then pissed off to Spain. Most accounts, where the
so she went from a relatively Catholic country to the most Catholic country.
Yes, where in quote marks the affair of the radishes occurred. Now, whatever you're guessing it won't be correct.
Okay, I won't even try then.
Basically, she was trying to land a singing position there, couldn't really get one. Had massive issues with that, so she needed money to eventually go back to Paris. She figured at this point that it was. I think most people have forgotten what I did. It's okay.
How many years apart was this?
This is.
If it was years
probably,
at all.
This is probably 16. Well, what happened? It happened in February 1966. 1696. This is. I believe this is 1697 now.
He's given it a year.
Yeah, which is fair. And basically, she ended up having to become a maid to the Countess Marino, who is, by all accounts, a demanding harridan of a woman, just horrible person. And basically, she worked there for a couple of months, making up enough money to actually get back to Paris and start a singing career again. But she decided, I've been treated like shit. I've had enough here. I've made my money. I can go. I can leave now. So what happened was, she took her revenge. When she dressed Marino's hair for a ball, she pinned some small fresh radishes to the back of her head where she couldn't see. So she went to the ball and she was wondering why people were smirking at her and basically laughing behind her back until some kind soul told her, "You've got radishes stuck to the back of your head."
Doesn't seem that bad. Would there bad connotations from radishes?
No, it's just more the fact that I'm all dressed up for a fancy Renaissance ball, and I've got fucking root vegetables at the back of my head.
Oh no, you can see my roots.
Yeah, and basically she flew home in a tower range, but Malpan gone. She'd long since taken the road north. We're once again, this is one of those tales that most accounts say she gone there, but there's not much evidence she actually did. It's nothing concrete. Like I don't know. She might have done, she might have not, but that's all the tales say. I'm repeating anyway because it's entertaining. But take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, what we know for certain that November 1698, she was back in Paris, back singing again as the opera singer. The next 7 years is where she peaked as a singer, became the most famous. Appeared in 20 different operas, 4 ballets, 41 different roles, originating 25 of them. Yeah, fantastic.
That's really impressive.
And recorded as having in his famous journal, the Marquis de Danjou noticed that they had heard La Malpen, who had the most beautiful voice in the world, and she was just fantastic. Yeah, it became a diva, and she was actually the first ever singer with a mezzo-soprano voice to have the lead singing role in an opera.
Oh wow!
Before that, it was always soprano, always soprano.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she did fantastic with that. It's as I said, it's hard to categorize her voice because terminology of how to describe voices is because the role she played might be called contralto, which is like even lower than mezzo-soprano, but it's probably more mezzo-soprano. It's yeah.
There are words.
Yeah, because basically pitch back then was about a tone lower than it is now, basically. Yeah. When it comes to singing ranges. So it's basically, so at some point, 1701, her husband actually did turn back up again, and they did live together for a while.
They've been in the south of France for so long.
they lived together for for a couple of years until he died.
Under mysterious circumstances.
Everything suggested that basically the conditions for him basically coming back was just to ignore her other escapades. Just like she still went off and did what she did, but him just to ignore it. He definitively got cucked. Let's just not to lie. It's funny because basically one affair after this happened was with the guy called Frederic Jules de la Tour, Chevalier de Bouillon, younger brother of the Prince de Touraine. He was also bisexual at the time, but he'd been keeping company with Maupan's colleague and former lover Thévard, who was the guy who joined the opera with her first time.
Oh yeah,
not the fencer, but the guy who found the way back up.
The baker.
Yeah, the baker. So yeah, him.
The one who lied about having property.
But basically, because they'd both been having off with this guy.
Oh God.
Basically, there was a confrontation where Thévard publicly insulted her one day. He immediately realised his mistake because he was not a duelist. So he lived in his dressing room for 3 weeks while she waited every night for him outside the theatre. He refused to come out. And they continued to play opposite each other on stage, which has probably increased the tension. The entire company basically eventually convinced him to say, just apologise, just say sorry, just say sorry. And he wrote a graceful letter addressed to her, which is the letter which is the letter which actually named her as Julie, her first name. That's the way we know. She relented on condition he apologised in front of the entire company, which he did because he was a smarter man than most, which is good. There was on another different occasion, there was one where she fought the Baron de Savan, who was a pretentious rule from this place called Perigord, bragging about his swordsmanship and bragging about female conquests. Broke to a group of men in the opera that he sullied the name of a young dancer, Mademoiselle Perignon, who basically, Marpan sitting nearby, dressed as a man, identifying herself to Servan as the Chevalier de Rency, was the only one present to call him out. They met the next day, and Malpan ran him through the arm, just stabbed him through the arm. And he found out pretty much the next day that she was a woman. He slunk back to Perigord where he came from, totally humiliated. And once again, the company always went, "Oh, Malpan," because a lot of them were also bravos. A lot of them liked to duel. So she was they fucking loved her. She was great. And there's one incident on September 6th, 1700, illustrates how dangerous it could be to cross her.
As if getting stabbed in the shoulder and the arm and generally merely dying in duels wasn't enough indication.
She arrived about 9 o'clock on a magnificent apartment on the that's a long French name. After a performance, she descended to the kitchen and demanded a meal. Her landlord, the Sieur de Langlois, refused, saying meals were not part of the lease. Bloody landlords. She therefore pulled a hunk of mutton off a spit taken from the oven and flung it at him, hitting the door through which he was beaten in retreat. The cook, a woman, branched the spit, so Mupan struck her with a huge door key, and with a sister, which is doubtless a woman she was banging, but called a sister for obvious reasons, and 3 lackeys basically beat the shit out of her. The cook.
They just beat the cook up.
Yeah, just as the police arrived and entered the brawl. Witnesses gave evidence the next day, but for some reason the case was filed away. I
don't like the way you described it as her sister, and 3 lackeys.
Yeah, like some other boy just turned up as well. Just said, "Well, there's a fight. Let's get in on this."
Just some people cooking in the background.
My brain went, some freaky shit happened that last night.
Probably.
That's why she wanted a meal.
There was also a connection with Albert again.
The musketeer.
Proper lover, yes. The son of the Duke got stabbed in the chest.
The one that kept going to and from war.
Yeah, him. He continued his relationship with Malcolm whether he was on leave, but he became the Duchess of Luxembourg's lover too. And he was imprisoned for 2 years for a duel with her former lovers. But after his release, he resumed the double affair with both her and Malpan. In a fit of cold rage one day, Malpan stopped behind Luxembourg while she was at prayer at St. Roche, a moment that if she did not break off with Albert, she would blow her brains out with a pistol. I will fucking kill you with this gun.
Mildly vindictive.
Yes, the incident caused a stir in the courts for several days. Oh shit. Yeah.
She started off as Ultimate Bard, and now she's gone, slightly yandere.
She's made the transition from Bard to, YouTube prankster.
No, that's YouTube.
Yep. Malpen eventually cooled off, but Albert still continued on and off with the Duchess of Luxembourg, who was probably fucking shitting herself. Let's face it. But then he basically he had a couple of mistresses and stuff, but it was one of those things.
What Duke didn't?
But yeah, it was I think there was a particular beautiful woman called Marie-Thérèse Louise de Sanitaire de Lestrange, whatever. I'll put a link to this or something.
De Lestrange?
Lestrange. Oh god, Lestrange. Yeah, Lestrange almost. He was basically one of the most, probably described as the most beautiful woman in France. Basically she was exiled to
duel?
No, but she was exiled to a convent for a while because she had an affair with a dolphin. Not
what?
dolphin, is it? Dauphin. Dauphin.
Oh,
it's a term.
Right.
It's a term of office. It's fine.
Not a dolphin.
We've somewhere else.
She was exiled to a convent because she really loved those blowholes anyway.
There weren't even dolphins near France.
No. But she basically became after she got back from the convent, she became entwined with Le Mapan again, which is very odd because she seemed to have no other female lovers in the whole history of things. So it's just a thing that once again, Mopan might have just kind of convinced her otherwise.
Had such a domineering personality,
yeah,
or probably both that and looked really good in man's clothes.
Yep. Yeah, and she unfortunately died after only a 2-day illness. And La Mapan was Julie Albany was heartbroken, basically, and she left the stage, didn't come back after that, and basically just she still kept on contact with Albert. They sent each other letters constantly because we're not sure actually what became of her basically after she left the stage that much. We know she died in 1707 at the age of 37.
Wow.
Yeah, she died young. But she probably lived a better life than a much more filled life than anyone of that bloody era.
More into 37 years than most people do in 80.
Some people say she founded a chapel or hospice or some things, which I highly doubt. Most people
Yeah,
highly
that
doubt this
doesn't
because a woman like
seem-
that going into the church. No,
Like, unless-
no.
After burning down
Unless
a
she's
nunnery.
going there to kidnap her lover and burn a corpse.
It's a very, very extended roleplay.
Yeah, her principal biographer speculates that she just lived her last years in a Paris suburb. We're not exactly
she
sure
probably
how
had the
she
money.
died, but yeah, she had a lot of money. That was pretty much the end of Julie d'Aubigny, but she is one of the most. Many people call her one of the most baffling figures in history, because it's like, who could possibly have even invented her as like a concept at the time? A sword wielding bisexual transvestite opera star.
It's one of those things that is so. I hesitate to use the word ludicrous, but you know what I mean. It's like it's so over the top that it can't have been, for the times, cannot have been made up. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think she's still
I get what
the most famous female duelist on record.
She's the most female duelist.
It was just a truly one of a kind person, and that's all I want to do about
That's
this.
awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad you covered her because, like, as I say, she was going to on my list.
I want to do her
preliminary
justice.
research on her
I want to do her justice.
That was really
that's the
good.
thing.
Absolute badass from the sounds of them.
So the only thing I think I doubt there in those accounts that actually happened was the affair of radishes. I think that's just someone embellishing her record a bit.
It just seems like a bit. Like,
a bit
if you were going to say one of them fell out of place, it was probably that one.
That one, yeah.
Also, the affair of radishes makes it sound much more exciting than what it actually was.
No,
It's literally because you use the word affair to describe it.
Exactly.
After everyone else she's been banging.
Yeah, no, it's the one affair that's not an affair. I know.
Yeah. It's just
not-
a series of events.
Yep. It was.
Some might describe as unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't think her father knew what he was actually doing when he taught her sword fighting. I think he started off something.
She would have just been a lot less dangerous, I feel.
Right. But yes, that's
I
the
actually
that's the
don't
end of
know
my
how
segment.
much of that would have happened if she hadn't been a duelist and a fencer.
Well, I think that's what a
So
lot of
much
times
of
she
it
got away with it.
hinges, the audacity of the actions on the time hinges on the fact she could duel.
That
and
she could kick
had
the shit
that-
out of people. Yeah.
That
This
what's
is,
the word? Fuck's sake, charismatic temperament.
Yeah.
It's another story where you can apply the
Braggadocio,
dominoes
yeah.
meme, where it's just like the small domino, give daughter a sword, and then a bunch of bigger dominoes stack up.
Although it's not
Burn
much-
down a nunnery.
She still could have potentially gone into opera, though, even without the fencing background.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, she
I
just did a
think it
really
would have
roundabout
been
way of it.
easier.
She just would have been a seductive opera singer and not nearly as amazing.
Yeah.
She would have just been another Carmen.
God, yeah. But yeah, the first ever mezzo soprano to sing lead, which is
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And, and I just like how the king just kind of just let her get away with quite a lot of stuff. Well, the law says only applies to male duelists. It's fine. Yeah, I know she almost killed 3 men by a riverbank. Shut up.
Look, you guys let yourself get beaten by a woman in a duel. Your point is invalid.
I just like the fact that they were fully ready to burn her at the stake because she set fire to part of a nunnery and a corpse.
And the king was like, nah.
And then 3 months later, had completely gone off the girl. I couldn't give a shit. No. But yeah, that's the tale of Julie d'Aubigny. La Marpan.
Absolute bicon.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
No. I thought putting this on, well, this could be the first LGBT character we've ever had, and then fucking
I can
Matt turns up with a
swing
guy
in
in a skirt.
I don't think.
like-
I think Spicer-Simson wore his more out of just like, I know you hate this, so I'm gonna wear it.
I like the comfort.
I imagine it was probably a good idea though in the heat of Africa.
It was probably quite breezy, yes.
I feel the nice breeze.
It was interesting though, a lot of people actually specifically pointed out that he wore a skirt and not a kilt, and like it was a big thing that he wore a skirt and not a kilt.
Yeah, yes. Well, a kilt would at least like been somewhat acceptable at the time. Yes. Right. I guess that leads us on to the
Yeah,
interesting fact of the thing.
take us
Although,
out with
I'll tell one, but I'll let Corby tell one because Corby's got one going ahead.
I'm gonna say, can we shill first?
Oh, we can
Oh,
chill
yes.
first. Yes.
Shove
need
your
to-
pluggables.
Hey, I have a YouTube and a Twitter in the link below. I'm not bothering to say it because I can't remember them off the top of my head. They're on the description.
Use your vision.
I also have a YouTube and a Twitter. My Twitter is @randomjot. My YouTube is Tom H Jordan, and that's
You've got sketches
also in the
and shit
description.
on your
Yeah. Oh,
your
and
channel.
yeah, I do like sketches and vlogs and stuff.
He does.
I also make comics sometimes, and if you like the page Random Jot Comics on Facebook, you can read them there.
Woo!
So I was
We,
trying
can't,
to, I was trying not
we
to
may
sneeze
or
and
may
ruin that.
not promise that One Small Town will appear one day, but today's
I
not that
really
day.
want someone to do like anime drawn characters of One Small Town.
Yes.
So
As
do
I
I.
said,
That would be-
I'll call
if anyone wants
Trigger.
if anyone wants to draw anything or send it any fan images whatsoever, do just send it to factvsfiction@gmail.com. Spelt the same way as the podcast.
Oh, Corby.
Yeah.
Spelt wrong on purpose.
Like our research, probably incorrect.
This was thoroughly in depth, I'll have you know.
Yeah. Oh. Yes.
Cool.
Anyway.
Tom, do you want to lead us out then?
Oh yeah. It's not really like a fact, it's just a disturbing anecdote that I heard I can't remember where I heard it, but yeah. So if you think about it really, Lego people live in homes made of their own flesh.
Not. Why would you go?
The world is
Flesh houses.
I do love
That is mildly
for-
horrifying.
I was gonna say there was definitely a moment where Tom thought about it. Then there was the moment where it set in, and he was just like, "Oh shit!"
Yep. It's like, is the house made of me, or am I made of house?
Existentialism intensifies.
I do have a quick a fact if we want that. Just
Sure.
one end.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cumulus clouds. Yeah, the big fluffy things that you see in the sky most of the time. The average one of those weighs 1.1 million pounds.
Water is heavy.
Good night, everyone.